Hello and welcome back. I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thank you for checking in on this video about Commander. I've got an arcane maelstrom sent here by Wizards of the Coast, so because it was sent by Wizards of the Coast, I won't be saying any naughty words in this video. Instead of saying I'm going to say poo-poo, for example. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about with these decks. I actually think these are really quite good products. I always have enjoyed the Commander precons. Even at their worst, they've been some of the better stuff that I still want to pick up. And there's some great new cards in here, both for Commander, and I wish I could say for Legacy, but it feels like for the first time ever, instead of them dumping weird stuff into Legacy through the Commander product, we've seen that come through Ikoria instead. But either way, less about that, the better. This is Arcane Maelstrom. This is the one that I want to do an upgrade video for. It is the Rug one, not because of the face card Calamax. No. I want Xyris. Xyris seems to be one of the more pushed commanders from the new set. It seems to be that if you combine it with certain cards, it just goes absolutely nuts. But before we get to that, I want to talk about my impressions of this year's Commander product compared to previous years. One of the big questions on everyone's lips is there enough reprints? And I want to just go out on a limb here and say, I don't know if this is the right place for the reprints that we need. Let me explain what I mean by that. What I'm saying is that the Commander product is a good place for new players to get into the game. It's a good place for players to start playing Commander or pick up new and interesting cards to play in Commander, like Calamax and Xyris and things like that. I think it's unfair and unreasonable to expect the Commander products to have multiple high-value reprints, things like Heuristic Studies, Force of Will, True Nemesis, or whatever you'd expect in the blue reprint slots, because inevitably that will create price gouging. I guess if all of them had equal value of reprints, then the price gouging wouldn't happen, but that's a very hard thing to sort of balance. And we already see it with this lot of Commander products that the Jeskai one, the one called Timeless Wisdom, is currently going for more money on pretty much every website. A, because there's a shortage of the product, and B, because it's got the new Fierce Guardianship in it, a card that personally I kind of hate the existence of, but it's going to be a huge staple. It's going to have judge foils or promos as well to promote like those things like we've seen in the past with these sort of cards. It's going to be a Commander staple, and people want it. So this one is now dearer because that's how supply and demand works. So I think if they put too many good reprints in these, they would just get price gouged, they get cracked, and the reprints inside of themselves will be sold on individually. However, the mana bases in these things are notoriously terrible. They could do with some upshifts, they could do with some upgrades like Battle Bond lands, for example. And as we'll get into, the utility cards in this deck aren't great either. So there's easy reprint space there for things like just your Kadamas, Reaches, and your staples that newer players might not have access to. I guess I should stop to talk about what exactly Xyris does so you understand the context and why I'm recommending these cards. Xyris is a 5 mana, 2 colourless, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red, Snake Leviathan legendary creature. It has flying, and whenever an opponent draws a card except for the first one in their draw step each turn, create a 1/1 green snake creature token. And when Xyris the Writhing Storm deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. So the whole hitting them and drawing cards things are a very good political tool. It's going to make you tokens. You and the player being hit, you're going to draw cards. You can make alliances. But I'm more interested in how we can break that synergy. I'm not here to let everyone draw multiple cards a turn with Howling Minds. I'm here to wheel the table to make as many snakes as I can in one go. Let's start with the first lot of upgrades, our mana upgrades. Now, bear in mind I didn't say mana base, I'm talking about how do we accelerate in a meaningful way. For every single card upgrade choice I'm going to give you an expensive, like higher end version, and then some of the budget options too. In terms of our mana upgrades, the expensive one is kind of obvious, and the expensive ones are quite often obvious. In this case, it's Gaea's Cradle. The card is legitimately nuts, and there isn't much that needs explaining about how good it is. Even if you play a fair version of Xyris where you only make a few tokens every turn cycle, Cradle is going to tap for a bunch of mana. This is an obvious include, but one I feel obliged to mention because I think it really pushes the deck over the edge in terms of power level. Perhaps you don't have access to a Gaea's Cradle right now, or you don't want to drop 530 bucks on one singular land. I kind of understand. Or perhaps you're just sick of playing in every green deck that has a board presence. I get it. Also, if you're mad that I dared to suggest a $500 land in the expensive card slot, don't get mad at me, get mad at Wizards for this reserve list crap they keep pushing. Our budget alternatives are Song of Freyalise. This allows each of your snakes to tap for mana on the turn you play it and the following turn. Consider this a huge mana boost to allow you to ramp into huge threats, or you can cast giant X spells like Banefire to kill people on the spot. While similar effects like Battle Hymn are also good, and I would probably include those in budget builds of this deck as well, the great thing about Song of Freyalise is that the final tick gives your creatures all +1/+1 counters, Vigilance and Trample until end of turn, which allows you to slam into your opponent's board to push through damage, or even just simply overwhelm them and kill someone if you have enough snakes in play. It's mana and a potential finisher. Crypt of Live Rights is our next budget alternative. It's a bit dearer than Song of Freyalise, so a few dollars, but it does a similar job making all your snakes into little mana dorks, but on a more regular ongoing basis. Because it's an ongoing effect, which is great if your snakes have haste, because when you make the snakes, you can tap them on the turn they come in to make mana, so you can effectively go wild with a sort of snake swarming, storming thing. And then we're going on to a bit higher end again on our third choice for budget options, which is Growing Rights of Itlimoc. This is $18 on average in the US, but you can pick them up, an English one at least, from Magic Card Market in Europe for around €8. The price discrepancy is huge. Commander is weird. It's a budget cradle once it flips, I guess we all understand that, but the upside of the enchantment side is that it can go digging you deeper for action, including some of the upgrades we're about to talk about, like certain gods and certain magus. Then we have the engines. You play this commander because you want to make a ton of snakes, and the best way to do that, hands down, is to wheel the table as much as humanly possible. So on the expensive side of things, it's kind of obvious again. Wheels are the engine in Xyris. Every time you cast a draw 7 at a table of 3 other players, Xyris will create 21 snakes. 21 snakes. So the obvious auto-include for any player with an extensive collection or a higher budget is Wheel of Fortune. Old school, the original draw 7 in red, a revised one will set you back a cool $180. Don't get angry at me, get angry at Wizards of the Coast and the reserve list and MTG Finance and yada yada yada. Don't direct your ire at me for that. Winds of Change is another pricey option, but a bit cheaper that I don't often see people talk about or even know exists. For 1 red mana, each player counts the cards in their hand, shuffles them in, so it doesn't let people have graveyard shenanigans with the discard, and then draws that many cards. It's not good when everyone's hands are empty, but if you've already cast a draw 7, casting this afterwards is even better, because again, you get 21 snakes. 21 snakes. The problem with Winds of Change is that although it's a budget alternative to Wheel of Fortune, it's still $40. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. Our budget alternatives are pretty cool. Can't afford a Wheel of Fate. Well, Magus of the Wheel is rarely more than $1 or so and does a similar job, albeit a little slower unless you have a haste enabler. Don't forget, being on a body means it can attack, it can block before it activates as well, and it can even be recurred in other decks, or even in this deck with things that bring back creatures. Not that I'm thinking of one off the top of my head in Brog. Moving on. This card is even in the Ruthless Regiment Mardu deck of this commander cycle, which means if you get a chance to play at a table with just the precons, you can become best friends with the Mardu Humans player at the other side of the table.
We just become best friends.
Yup! Windfall is a $3 or $4 card for some reason, but as it was in Iconic Masters, Original Commander, Commander 2015, Commander 2016, if you regularly play or buy Commander product, you might just have one knocking around anyway. What's really wild is that, much like Magus, Windfall is also in Commander 2020, but it's not in this deck. It's actually in the Jeskai deck. It's mad. Madness. But not literally madness. That doesn't usually matter. Whatever. Moving on. Getting up there at the $10 mark, we have Teferi's Puzzle Box, which essentially wheels each player in their upkeep, which gives you snakes, and more snakes. It's old Nekusar tech, but it still holds up. Before we get to the payoff section of this video, which is the third category of upgrade that I want to go through, I want to do some honorable mentions for ways to just improve the consistency and the power level of your deck without worrying about cards that are even specific to this type of deck. These are just utility cards I think most Command decks should play. As I mentioned earlier with reprints, this isn't the place for the high-end ones necessarily. We can have some higher-end ones, but we're never going to see the Ristic Studies here. However, there are some obvious omissions that I think have to be included in these things. Farseek, Cultivate, and Kadama's Reach are all absent. The deck has a bloody natural connection in it over any of these things, which is fine if you want to keep counter magic up and tricks, I guess, but it's weird that the fixing utility in these decks is so often so poor. Good reprints, well there are some. There's Crop Rotation, there's Arcane Signet both showing up, as well as Kursig Wolfrun and Yavimaya Coast in the mana base. But where are the Battle Bond lands, Wizards? Throw us a bone here. Then we come to the more exciting cards, the payoff, the stuff that just literally kills your opponent if, 21 snakes isn't enough. 21 snakes. In the expensive camp, we have Perforos, God of the Forge, my absolute favourite of the original Thorosian gods. His ability coupled with a wheel and Xyris on board would often spell death for your opponent, or put them seriously low. The great thing is he shoots each opponent for 2 damage per creature that enters the battlefield. Remember that draw 7 where you make 21 snakes that I mentioned? That zaps everyone at the table for 42 damage.
Headshot.
It's a 3-card combo machine gun that will probably end the game on the spot. He is currently $20 for his lowest priced printing, but this gives all the people waiting for their Stargazer secret lairs somewhere to put him when he shows up, I guess. There is a super budget version of this, Impact Tremors. Somehow my favourite draft common from Dragons of Tarkir is still worth more than $1 now, but I've been seeing this card's virtues for the best part of half a decade, a key part of one of my popular meme decks, Dragon Ball Bees.
Bees?
Beads.
Beads?
This is half the mana cost of Perforos and can come down early whilst also doing other things with spare mana and turns every snake into a damage ping. Ideally you play this and Perforos if you're going for like maximum bang for buck, but this is a lot easier on your wallet. In terms of other expensive and rather obvious payoffs, if you're looking to make a ton of mana and creatures, Craterhoof Behemoth is the most efficient of finishers, coming in at almost $70 now for a copy. Everyone's favourite Hoofy one is in dire need of a reprint, but this card ends games in a dramatic and sometimes reassuring fashion. Many EDH games where everyone is tired and either wants to play another game or just go home have ended with someone saying, oh come on, just cheer for the Hoof already. Now if $70 is too much, there are some cards that impersonate Hoof pretty well. We have Literal, the Smaller Pig in End Raid's Forerunners, which is 1 mana less but $70 less, so I can understand why you want to go for that one. And Decimator of the Provinces, which is a little bit dearer now because it's an out of print to rare, it's not in standard like Forerunner is. Whilst both are not surefire instant wins like Craterhoof because the pump isn't like exponential, they often will be still game ending when they come down. If you don't want effect strapped to a body, then you can also have the good old fashioned Draft Bomb Overrun. It's the original I showed you my big board, please respond. But Overwhelming Stampede is a similarly powerful effect as well that can go bigger and taller, although you need a big old lad in the first place to really pop off, and it doesn't bring any evasion like Overrun's Trample. Alternatively, for a few dollars, you can grab a Beastmaster's Ascension, which, as well as being cheaper than Hoof in the real-world dollar department, has advantages over the Hoof. Firstly, it's 3 mana, so it's a lot cheaper to actually play, and can be played before you even have a board presence, instead of having to be played afterwards as a finisher. Although playing it out onto the board, you've got to be careful, it might invoke unwanted hate and attention from the table around you, if I'm honest. Secondly, it triggers for each creature attacking. If you have 7 or more snakes and they attack, it gets 7 triggers, 7 quest counters, Bob's your uncle, fun is your aunt, it pumps your team, and then, well yeah, people are probably dead. The pump isn't like a one and done thing either. It's actually an ongoing Anthem style effect, a permanent +5/+5, which makes for better defenses, you can block better later down the line, and it makes for some very fun Warstorm Surge turns as well. But remember, if someone's Assassin's Trophies this during combat, you might be in trouble as all your creatures shrink. This brings me nicely to Warstorm Surge, another super cheap alternative to the Perforoses and the Tremors of this world. It is another effect in that style, but with a difference. Firstly, it checks the power. So each snake is 1 damage, but with an Anthem like Ascension in play, or even a Coat of Arms, or an Adaptive Automaton naming snake, the damage begins to really rack up. It's also not each opponent like the others, but any target. This is both good and bad. It's less damage overall for like burning out the table, and less likely just to kill people on the spot, but it does mean that 4 snakes being generated can enter together and murder a Seedborn Muse that looks like it's going to terrorize the table. Warstorm Surge is legit. And lastly, the card I couldn't finish the video without mentioning. It's both an engine, but it will also end up winning you more games than any other if it goes uncontested and not answered, and that's Skull Clamp. The reason I left this to the end is because I just want to make a point here. This deck is both green and blue, the 2 best colours in Commander for drawing cards, and this will be the best card of Arch Engine you will have in the deck, and it's colourless. Skullclamp is banned in Legacy for a reason. If you haven't seen it before, every time you put it on a creature it gives it +1/-1 on a snake, that will just kill it. Every time you clamp a snake for 1 mana it kills it and you draw 2 cards. If you have 3 snakes and 3 spare mana, well no worries, just casually draw 6 cards. Job's a good one. Skullclamp will set you back about $5, and if you are playing on a super tight budget, I think this is where you want to put those dollars, because this card is absurd alongside this snake pumping crazy Space Leviathan. So that's what I'll do with Calamax the Stormsire and the Arcane Maelstrom. I'll take him out of the helm, put Xyris in, and just start making loads of snakes. Because everybody likes snakes. I actually don't like... do I like snakes? I don't hate them. Anyway, that's not the point of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's helpful. I hope it gave you some food for thought. Are there cards that I've obviously missed out, perhaps, to get people to comment down below? Who knows? Drop me a comment, let me know what you would be adding to the deck. Are you upgrading this one or one of the other precons? I'd like to hear and know. There will be gameplay with this, with Xyris, and all these things on the channel, on Magic the Gathering Online, when they finally come out on Modo. But when that is, well, it's not quite clear. Wizards should really communicate these things a little bit clearer to their audience. Either way, if you're thinking of picking up a precon, if you don't have a commander deck already, I recommend it highly. If you already have a commander deck, perhaps consider singles, but there's several good new powerful cards in it. If you're still looking to get a hold of an Arcane Signet because of the Brawl deck fiasco, they're in here. So yeah, on the whole, I recommend the product. And that's me being... It feels weird not to be saying, this product crap, because some of the products recently have been crap. But these ones are actually pretty good. Can you tell I find it hard to be earnestly positive about things? Thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.